Greetings and welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger. I thought it was time to go back to the library of Toothless and continue in reading Toxic Parents, Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy, Reclaiming Your Life. I'm on chapter 7 now, and I'm going to start at the beginning of chapter 7, but I do have a starting point where I need to start. This is part 2, and this is a very sensitive topic. This is the ultimate betrayal, the sexual abusers. I think it's only befitting at such a time as this as to what's going on in the sector, whether it's truth, whether it's rumor, no matter what it is, but we all need to be cognizant of what's happening in our homes. And so please, indulge me if you would. Incest is perhaps the cruelest, most baffling of human experiences. It is a betrayal of the most basic trust between child and parent. It is emotionally devastating. The young victims are totally dependent on their aggressors. So they have nowhere to run, nowhere to run to. Protectors become persecutors, and reality becomes a prison of dirty secrets. Incest betrays the very heart of childhood, its innocence. In the last 2 chapters, we have looked into some of the darker realities of toxic families. We have met parents who have an extraordinary lack of empathy and compassion for their children. They batter their children with every weapon from degrading criticism to leather belts, and they still rationalize their abuses as acts of discipline or education. But now we enter a realm of behavior so perverse that it defies rationalization. This is where I must leave behind strictly psychological theories. I believe that sexual violation of children is a genuinely evil act. And remember, this book is written by Dr. Susan Forward, and she's coming from her practice, and she wrote this book to help all of us heal, especially if you've been affected by such acts. What is incest? The question is asked. Incest is difficult to define because the legal and psychological definitions are worlds apart. The legal definition is extremely narrow, usually defining incest as sexual intercourse between blood relations. As a result, millions of people did not realize that they were incest victims because they had not been penetrated. From a psychological point of view, incest covers a much wider range of behaviors and relationships. These include physical contact with a child's mouth, breasts, genitals, anus, or any other body part that is done for the purpose of sexually arousing the aggressor. That aggressor does not have to be a blood relative. He or she can be anyone whom that child perceives as a family member, such as a step-parent or an in-law. There are other types of incestuous behaviors that are extremely damaging, even though they may not involve any physical contact with the child's body. For example, if an aggressor exposes himself or masturbates in front of the child, or even persuades the child to pose for sexually suggestive photographs, he is committing a form of incest. We must add to our definition of incest that the behavior has to be kept secret. A father who affectionately hugs and kisses his child is doing nothing that needs to be kept secret. In fact, such touching is essential to a child's emotional well-being. But if that father strokes the child's genitals or makes the child stroke his, that is an act that must be kept secret. That is an act of incest. There are also a number of far more subtle behaviors that I call psychological incest. Victims of psychological incest may not have been actually touched or assaulted sexually, but they have experienced an invasion of their sense of privacy or safety. I am talking about invasive acts like spying on a child who is dressing or bathing, or repeatedly making seductive or sexually explicit comments to a child. While none of these behaviors fits the literal definition of incest, the victims often feel violated and suffer many of the same psychological symptoms as actual incest victims. I'm going to read a myth or two, and then I'm going to go to where I left off, part 2. Myth: incest is a rare occurrence. Reality: all responsible studies and data, including those from the U.S. Department of Human Services, show that at least 1 out of every 10 children is molested by a trusted family member before the age of 18. Only as recently as the early 1980s did we begin to realize just how epidemic incest is. Prior to that time, most people believed that incest occurred in no more than 1 out of 100,000 families. Myth: incest is a reaction to sexual deprivation. Reality: most aggressors have active sex lives within marriage, and often through extramarital affairs as well. They turn to children either for feelings of power and control, or for the unconditional, non-threatening love that only children can provide. Although these needs and drives become sexualized, sexual deprivation is rarely the trigger. Myth: children are molested more often by strangers than by someone they know. Reality: the majority of sexual crimes committed against children are perpetrated by trusted members of the family. And now I'm going to go and continue to read part 2, starting with the silent partner. The aggressor and the victim put on good performances to keep their secret inside the house. But what about the other parent? When I first began working with adults who were sexually abused as children, I found that many father-daughter victims seemed angrier at their mothers than at their fathers. Many victims tortured themselves with the often unanswerable question of how much their mothers knew about the incest. Many were convinced that their mothers must have known something, because some instances the signs of abuse were quite blatant. Others were convinced that their mothers should have known, should have picked up the behavioral changes in their daughters, should have sensed something was wrong, and should have been more tuned in to what was going on in the family. Tracy, who seemed very businesslike when she described how her insurance salesman father graduated from watching her undressed to fondling her genitals, cried several times as she talked about her mother. I always seemed to be angry with my mother. I could love her and hate her at the same time. Here's this woman who'd always see me depressed, crying hysterically in my room, and she'd never say one goddamn word. Can you believe that any mother in her right mind wouldn't find it unusual to see her own daughter in tears all the time? I couldn't just tell her what was going on, but maybe if she'd ask, I don't know, maybe I couldn't have told her anyway. God, I wish she could have found out about what he was doing to me. Tracy expressed a wish that I have heard from thousands of incest victims, that somehow someone, especially their mother, would discover the incest without the victims having to go through the pain of telling. I agreed with Tracy that her mother was incredibly insensitive to her daughter's unhappiness, but that didn't necessarily mean that Tracy's mother had any knowledge of what was going on. There are three types of mothers in incest families: those who genuinely don't know, those who may know, and those who do know. It is possible for a mother to live in an incest family and not know. Several theories contend that it is not that every mother would somehow sense incest in her family. I disagree. I am convinced that some mothers truly don't know. The second type of mother is the classic silent partner. She wears blinders. The incest clues are there, but she chooses to ignore them in a misguided attempt to protect herself and her family. The final type is the most reprehensible, the mother who is told of the molestation by her children, but does nothing about it. When this happens, the victim is doubly betrayed. When Liz was 13, she made one desperate attempt to tell her mother about her stepfather's escalating sexual assaults. I'm going to take a break. One moment, please. Thank you for waiting. I really felt trapped. I thought if I told my mother, she would at least talk to him. What a joke. She almost collapsed in tears and said, "I'll never forget her words. Why are you telling me this? What are you trying to do to me? I've lived with your stepfather for 9 years. I know he couldn't do this. He's a minister. Everyone respects us. You must have been dreaming. Why are you trying to ruin my life? God will punish you." I couldn't believe it. It had taken so much out of me just to tell her, but she just turned on me. I ended up confronting her. Liz began to cry. I hugged her for several minutes as she relieved the pain and the grief of her mother's all too typical response to the truth. Liz's mother was a classic silent partner, passive, dependent, and infantile. She was intensely preoccupied with her own survival and with keeping the family intact. As a result, she needed to deny anything that might rock the family boat. Many silent partners were abused children themselves. They suffer from extremely low self-esteem and may be reenacting the struggles of their own childhoods. They usually become overwhelmed by any conflict that threatens the status quo because they don't want to confront their own fears and dependencies. As is often the case, Liz wound up taking care of her mother emotionally, even though it was Liz who most needed support. A few mothers actually pushed their daughters into incest. Deborah, a member of Liz's incest group, told a particularly shocking story. People tell me I'm pretty. I know men are always looking, but I've spent most of my life thinking I look like the creature from Alien. I've always felt slimy, disgusting. What my father did to me was bad enough, but what really hurt was my mother. She was the middleman. She set up the time and place, and sometimes she even held my head in her lap while he did it. I kept begging her not to make me do it, but she'd say, "Please, honey, do it for me. I'm not enough for him, and if you don't give him what he wants, he'll go find some other woman. Then we'll be out on the street." I try to understand why she did what she did, but I have 2 children of my own, and it seems like the best inconceivable thing that any mother could do. Many psychologists believe that silent partners transfer their wife maternal role to their daughters. This was certainly true of Deborah's mother, though it is unusual for this transfer to be done so overtly. But in my experience, most silent partners do not so much transfer their role as abdicate their personal power. They don't usually push their daughters to replace them, but they allow themselves and their daughters to become dominated by the aggressor. Their fears and dependency needs prove more powerful than their maternal instincts, leaving their daughters unprotected. The legacy of incest. Every adult who's molested as a child brings from his or her childhood pervasive feelings of being hopelessly inadequate, worthless, and genuinely bad. No matter how different their lives may appear on the surface, all adult victims of incest share a legacy of tragic feelings. The 3 Ds of incest: dirty, damaged, and different. Connie's life was severely distorted by the 3 Ds, as she described. I used to feel like I went to school with a sign on my forehead that said incest victim. I still think a lot of the time that people can look right inside me and see how disgusting I am. I'm just not like other people. I'm not normal. Over the years, other victims have described themselves as feeling like the Elephant Man, a creature from outer space, an escapee from the funny farm, and lower than the lowest scum on earth. Incest is a form of psychological cancer. It is not terminal, but treatment is necessary and sometimes painful. Connie lets her go untreated for more than 20 years. It took a terrible toll on her life, especially in the area of relationships. I don't know what a loving relationship feels like. Connie's feelings of self-disgust led her through a series of degrading relationships with men, because her first relationship with a man, her father, involved betrayal and exploitation. Love and abuse were woven tightly together in her mind. As an adult, she was attracted to men who enabled her to reenact this familiar scenario. A healthy relationship, one involving caring and respect, would have felt unnatural, out of sync with her view of herself. Most incest victims have an especially difficult time with adult love relationships. If by chance a victim should manage to find a loving relationship, the ghost from the past usually contaminated, often in the area of sexuality. Robbed of sexuality. Tracy's incest trauma seriously affected her marriage to a kind and caring man, she told me. My relationship with David is falling apart. He's a terrific guy, but how long can he put up with this? Sex is just terrible. It always has been. I don't even want to go through the motions anymore. I hate his touching me. I wish sex had never been invented. It's quite common for a victim to feel revulsion at the thought of sex. This is a normal reaction to incest. Sex becomes an indelible reminder of the pain and betrayal. The tape starts playing in her head. Sex is dirty. Sex is bad. I did terrible things when I was little. If I do those terrible things now, I'll feel like a bad person again. Many victims talk about being unable to have sex without being haunted by flashbacks. They try to be intimate with someone they care about, but in their minds, they are vividly reliving the original incest traumas. During sex, adults who were victims often see or hear their aggressors in the room with them. These flashbacks bring up all their negative feelings about themselves and their sexuality. Fizzles like a doused fire. Other incest victims, like Connie, use their sexuality in self-denigrating ways because they've grown to believe that sex is all they're good for. Though they may have slept with hundreds of men in exchange for a little affection, many of these victims still feel repelled by sex. Why do good feelings make me feel bad? A victim who, as an adult, has managed to become sexually responsive and orgasmic, and many do, may still feel guilty about her sexual feelings, making them difficult, if not impossible, to enjoy. Guilt can make good feelings feel bad. In contrast to Tracy, Liz was very responsive sexually, but the ghosts from the past were no less intrusive. I have lots of orgasms. I love to have sex every way possible. Where it gets really bad for me is afterwards. I get so depressed. When it's over, I don't want to be held or touched. I just want the guy to get away from me. He doesn't understand it. A couple of times when sex has been especially good for me, I had fantasies about transitioning myself afterwards. Even though Liz experienced sexual pleasure, she still had intense feelings of self-loathing. As a result, she needed to atone for this pleasure by punishing herself, even to the extent of visualizing termination. It was as if by having these self-abasing feelings and fantasies, she could somehow make up for her sinful and shameful sexual arousal. I can't punish myself enough. In the preceding chapter, we saw victims of physical abuse turn their pain and rage against themselves, or in some cases against others. Incest victims tend to follow the same patterns, releasing their repressed rage and unresolved grief in a wide variety of ways. Depression is an extremely common expression of suppressed incest conflicts. It might range from a general sense of sadness to nearly total immobilization. A disproportionate number of incest victims, particularly women, allow themselves to become overweight as adults. The weight serves two important purposes for the victim. Number one, she imagines it will keep men away from her. And number two, the body mass creates a false illusion of strength and power. Many victims become terrified when they first begin to lose weight because it makes them feel helpless and vulnerable once again. Recurrent headaches are also common among incest victims. These headaches are not only a physical manifestation of repressed rage and anxiety, but are also a form of self-punishment. Many incest victims lose themselves in a haze of alcohol and drug abuse. This provides a temporary deadening of their feelings of loss and emptiness. However, this delay in confronting the real problem only prolongs the victim's suffering. A great number of incest victims also seek punishment from the world at large. They sabotage relationships, seeking punishment from the ones they love. They sabotage themselves at work, seeking punishment from colleagues or employers. A few commit violent crimes, seeking punishment from society. Others become prostitutes, seeking punishment from pimps, from patrons, or even from God. This time it's going to be better. There is a baffling paradox in the fact that no matter how painful their lives have been, a great number of incest victims remain fused to their toxic parents. The pain came from those parents, but the victims still look to them to alleviate it. It is very hard for adult incest victims to give up the myth of the happy family. One of the most painful legacies of incest is this never-ending search for the magic key that will unlock the treasure chest of your parents' love and approval. This search is like emotional quicksand, bogging the victim down in an impossible dream, preventing her from getting on with her life. Liz summed it up. I keep thinking that someday they will reach out and say, "We think you're wonderful, and we love you the way you are," even though I know that my stepfather is a child molester, and even though my mother chose him and didn't protect me. It's like I need to have them forgive me. The healthiest member of the family. Many people are shocked when I say that the incest victims I've worked with are usually the healthiest member of their families. After all, the victim usually has the symptoms, self-blame, depression, destructive behaviors, sexual problems, termination attempts, substance abuse, while the rest of the family often seems outwardly healthy. But despite this, it is usually the victim who ultimately has the closest vision of the truth. She was forced to sacrifice herself to cover up the craziness and the stress in the family system. All her life, she was the bearer of the family secret. She lived with tremendous emotional pain in order to protect the myth of the good family. But because of all this pain and conflict, the victim is usually the first to seek help. Her parents, on the other hand, will almost always refuse to let go of their denials and defenses. They refuse to deal with reality. With treatment, most victims are able to reclaim their dignity and their power. Recognizing a problem and seeking help is a sign not only of help, but of courage. And that ends chapter 7 of Toxic Parents by Dr. Susan Foran. I felt it very necessary to make this video at this time. There is a lot of things going on social media, and especially on YouTube in the sector that I'm in. There was a period of time where we had a group of men accusing innocent individuals of being predators, mainly of children. I myself was accused of being one. Uncle Suge was accused of being one. There were several men found to be, and all of the talk stopped. If there is someone else that was falsely accused that I don't know about, I'm sorry I left your name off the list. But I know that it was only one individual that accused me. That same individual, along with several individuals, Kwame Brown, his brother TJ, and these are people names that I don't normally mention. But they went on and on and on. And several people, Garrett Chavis, I don't know these people, and I don't care how many videos they make. I really don't. Kev Lowe. These are people that I've heard outwardly. Ears to the Street was accused. That was the third person that I can recall. Armando Black. This fellow they call Flip Phone, Shamrock he called himself today. They made all kind of derogatory videos and statements about Ears and Uncle Suge. They made derogatory videos about me, but it wasn't as a predator. It's only one person that called me a child predator. Now, the behavior that I've heard of this person comes very close to a predator. We've heard two disturbing stories from two women that trusted this individual as a content creator like I did myself. Did nothing wrong but supported this individual, and I'm talking all three of us. Gave freely. Two of us did. I don't know about the third. But from the actions of this person, we may have another predator under the radar. I do not know. I think it seriously should be looking into. And I said looking. Where in the world did I get looking? Looked into? Desperately, I'm sure. There are children at stake. And one of the ladies, the one that used to co-host with him, I warned everybody about this young man. He lied on me. He has a woman that's probably as deviant as he is that runs his Discord, his Rumble. And that person shared with all of the people that turned against me, the ones that were close to her. And they got to see that she cared no more about them either, because she turned on them with him. No two people can be as close and do as much dirt and harm as those two people if something is not off. He has a young child, this co-host said, that makes real bad, overt noises that are similar to activity limited only to adults. There is a problem in that household. And imagine with your spouse working sometime, I'm sure, double shifts, certainly traveling as we've been told. And those babies are in the care of that person. It begs to question what's going on. I don't falsely accuse anyone. I don't know what's going on. I look at behavior. Always have, always will. Don't care who like me, who don't. I've been through everybody making videos and calling me every manner of a nasty name that you can call me. I've had my home doxed and all of that good stuff. Do what you gotta do. But I'm gonna do what I gotta do. This needs to be brought to the attention of someone. I am disheartened. It brings back so many memories of my experience. I've shared my story. This man made a mockery of my story, and he kept saying things that I never shared, I never said, because it never happened to me. He kept saying how I was penetrated from behind. I was never penetrated at all. Oh, he talks so nasty, so ugly. And YouTube have guidelines, terms of services. He broke them all. But he would always take down the video. They're up on Rumble, some of them may not be of me now, since he has a new target. And the things he's saying about this young lady and her family. His tag team member said it earlier when he was defending me, supposedly, from the big bad wolf, the bully. But unfortunately, he was not defending me. He was doing exactly what his tag team partner is doing now. I'm saddened. And no one will probably hear my video because I don't get much traction. But I'm going to keep sounding the alarm because one day somebody may hear this video and it may help them at the very time that they need it. We can't help everybody. We can just do what we can do. And I'm going to do my part and sound the alarm. I see a lot of people making jokes and think it's funny and don't care whether you care about a person or not. It's humanity that you should care about, especially if you have children or grandchildren. I heard people laughing, making fun of my grandchildren that I don't have. They accused my nephew of being a molester. Told me to watch out for the children, the little girl in the other room. Oh, it was all a joke. Everything was funny until they started talking about their children and saying some of the most ugliest, vilest things that one could say about someone's child. Well, they all laughed when he talked about non-molestation and being penetrated from behind. And he didn't use those words. He was very vulgar with it. Very nasty. Until he talked about their 3-year-olds. Doesn't feel good. Matter of fact, all their daughters. These men have put up videos of people's children pretending that they're involved in some very promiscuous behaviors. Oh, it's distasteful. It's very painful. Made fun of people that have issues and had some family problems. And those people thought that I was behind all of that. I had nothing to do with any of that. See, the tag team partner, thanks to my friend who defended me, felt that he could allow the story to get out because he had a platform. And at the time, Asatar did not. He did everything he could to support me, and I'm forever grateful. And he does that for each one of these individuals because Asatar is truly an honorable guy. He's even defending the woman that he knows made a video about us. Well, not him, but myself and the bully, and the doxer, and the tag team partner. The one who this man talked about his daughter and what he would do to her and how he would do it all over her chest. He said he was so angry at this man and would never forgive this man because he sent all of these people after him. Not true. They're best of buds now. One's feeding off the other. And I know people probably think that, she's just a bitter old woman. Oh, I'm not. I'm not bitter at all. I'm just a woman who knows who she is. And whenever I decide to talk about me, I do it. It doesn't matter. I got people in my family that hates when I talk about being molested. But I do that for a reason. It's no bragging rights. It's very painful. But we have children coming up. We need to teach them what to look for. And unfortunately for me, I was asleep at nights. So I can't really tell them about my experience to look for that. No, I can't. But I can tell them about experiences of others that I've read about, that I've healed from, that I've sat in rooms seeking help, counseling sessions. I can tell them about that. These people really don't know that this stuff is on here for life. And it saddens me that some of these young adults have to get on here and listen to this stuff. It saddens me. But my son warned me that there was these kind of people out here. But I just never, ever, ever in a million years dreamt that it would happen to me because I didn't do any of the roasting. I wasn't in anybody's business. The people I spoke with on the phone was on the phone. I didn't get on here and call names. I didn't make jokes. Oh, they said, oh, you're the subliminal queen. I'm not subliminal. I know how to communicate. Sometimes I don't. I don't listen well. I know my shortcomings. I know what I work on daily. I know how far I've advanced in life. And I'm grateful. I'm even more grateful for the opportunity to make this video. And every video that I've made, I'm proud of the work that I've put in. So if you got this far in the video, probably didn't. But if you did, would you please make a comment? Share the video with someone. Subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. And like the video. If you make a comment, it helps YouTube understand that people that do choose to watch the video engages in the topics that I care to share. And again, I'm about fallen humanity. I hear a lot of people with a lot of good ideas who say they have a lot of honor and integrity. I don't see it in their actions, but I hear it in their voice, and I'm glad. Hope they're honest to themselves anyway. My mantra is to thine own self be true. Be true to you, I promise you, you'll be true to everybody you meet. RAINN was laughed at and talked about. And then they even called him a part of the LGBTQ community. Unfortunately, he was not molested by a man. It was a woman. They made all kind of jokes, laughter, fun. None. No, not one is funny. There is no time that sexual abuse and humor goes together. And I didn't need anybody to tell me that. I live it every day. I've sought all the help that I can seek, and I yet go for help when I feel the need. Betrayal of trust at such a young age leads to, most of the time, suppression, depression, acting out, anxiety, fear. You name it, it's there. I get accused of things I've never done or said. So be it. I cannot and will not apologize for something I didn't do. Everything I know that I've done, I've apologized for. But we have a situation where it sounds very predatory. Same similar storyline. Eeriness. And I wasn't even involved in it. Just hearing it makes me cringe. And again, if you've gotten this far in the video, I want to say thank you. And I appreciate you. I'm going to get ready to close. But I thought it was very, 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 very necessary for me to finish this chapter. I think this was one of the hardest chapters for me, even though I've read this book countless of times. I think it was one of the hardest chapters. Although you didn't hear my story in the chapter, my story could very well be written in chapter 7. Very well could be written. A lot of people say hurt people hurt people. I say hurting people hurt people. I believe it's a lot of hurting people on this app. And I believe it's a lot of functioning people. You know how you have a functional drug addict, alcoholic, sex addict, gambler, shopaholic, overeater, whatever the vice may be, whatever the ism is. We have a lot of those, I believe. And again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the platform so that I can share. And again, when I share, it's whosoever will. Let them come. I'm going to keep showing up. And I'm going to do my part, whatever that is. I'm led. Did you know that mental health is a family affair? It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, one child grows up to be somebody that just loves to learn, and Another child grows up to be somebody you just love to burn. Mama loves the both of them. You see it's in the blood. Both kids are good to mom. Blood thicker than the mud. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Oh, a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Nobody wants to blow. Nobody wants to be left out. You can't leave because your heart is there. But you can't stay because you've been somewhere else. You can't cry because you look broke down, but you're crying anyway because you're all broke down. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, it's a family affair. Hey, hey. I don't know what that was. It said add text. Also, just want to say to the young lady that's here in Texas now, I extended you a hand before. And I know that you're not wanting the hand. I understand. I heard you, everything you said after we had the conversation. But I thought you were getting away from the craziness then. But it happens for you when it happens. But I tried to warn you. Matter of fact, I tried to warn everybody, even the ones with eyes every time they enter a chat, and the ones who think that they're close now. Yeah, every last one of us that this person turned on, and they all was in it when he turned on me. Trust me, we all thought that we didn't have a thought, because who could think of somebody turning on you when you don't have any interaction with them for them to do that? You only know them on YouTube and you laugh and have fun. And you don't laugh and have fun at everything. What I learned from that experience, when I start hearing things I don't like, it's best for me to remove myself. Because if someone is watching, they don't know that I'm not participating in the things that I don't like. They don't know that. They just see me there. And my very presence could cause someone to want to be there, because they think if it's good enough for a 65-year-old toothless, certainly it can't be all that bad. You know, we kind of have a habit, and we do this as humans. That's why I know so well when I learned about the herd mentality, it meant everything to me, because then I understood in depth what that meant. But we influence people, be it a good influence or a bad influence. And it's written in one of my favorite scriptures. Don't let your good be evil spoken of, and shun the very appearance of evil. And that's what I have to do. So I don't have to protect the world. I don't have to defend nobody. But I do stand on my square. I stand in integrity and honor. I'm human, and I fall short of other people's expectations, and sometimes even my own. I am who I say I am. And I don't rub anything in nobody's face. The reality is the reality. And when I hear all of these stories about how bad these people are getting treated, it's one name they always purposely leave out. It's whoever else it may be. No, we know who all it is. See, there were two women that was going back and forth with this demonic type person. And they were going back and forth. Then it was 4 women going back and forth. Then 5. This woman had no clue. This one meaning me. Everybody at one point pretended, maybe you didn't, but pretended to love Toothless. And I shared and gave that love and respect back in return. It's unfortunate that all of this is happening by one person and nobody felt that it was time for this person to be silenced. All of the flagging in the world that everybody was doing to each other hasn't stopped this person. One woman says she was so traumatized, I haven't heard anything about her trauma lately. No triggering. None whatsoever. And that's a good thing for her. But now they're best of buds where they can actually have conversations. And I guess all it takes is just whatever it takes. Give her a couple of dollars and she'll shut down your video and get on your platform. But all the while, everybody's talking about black women and black excellence and black men, and black is civilly dead in the eyes of the law. And it's not related to any human. We do have a bloodline. We do have DNA. Mitochondrial, as a matter of fact. For only a woman can give life. And that's through the birth canal I'm talking. And yeah, we're the least respected. Most of you are between the ages of 30 and 50, maybe 60. No respect for each other. And so I know when I see that, that means no respect for self. So I don't demand it. I don't expect it. I'm just going to treat you the way you should be treated. And as anybody with respect, and if we can't have that mutuality, then remove myself. It's just that simple. So I've spent an hour of your time if you listened. I don't mind giving an hour of mine. This is a public service announcement, and it needs to be said. I wish we as a people would do better, but that's just me, wishful thinking. This is YouTube, and so you do it however you choose. But on that note, I am leaving the tiger's den. Goodbye. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us who we used to be. Everybody searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. So I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I failed, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And if by chance that special place that you've been dreaming of takes you to a lonely place, find yourself in love.